So the M2 MacBook Air has been one of my favorite Apple releases pretty much of all time, aside obviously from the iPad Pro right behind me. The combination of power, versatility, and portability makes the M2 MacBook Air probably my #1 recommendation to most people looking for a laptop. But when you look at the MacBook Air and where it stands in the lineup, it's kind of on the cheaper side, so most people think that it's only really capable of being used for things like Gmail and Slack and on-the-go productivity tasks and things like that. But most people don't know that you can really use that M2 power and that M2 chip in the MacBook Air to run an entire desk setup. So what I want to do in this video is walk you guys through my M2 MacBook Air desk setup and show you guys that it's very possible to have your M2 MacBook Air be your one and only productivity and powerhouse machine, and that you don't need to go out and get those kind of fully loaded M1 Pro and M1 Max MacBook Pros. But without further ado, let me walk you guys through my M2 MacBook Air setup and show you guys how I use all these accessories to make my productivity and my leisure time just that much better. Let's get into it. So let's start off with the computer itself. So the computer that I have obviously is the M2 MacBook Air, and the only thing that I did, or the only thing that I added to it, was an additional 8 gigs of RAM. So I am rocking a 256 gigs of internal storage with 16 gigs of RAM built into it directly from Apple. So that one cost me about $11.49 if you go through the Apple Education Store, which is something that you guys should take advantage of because there's no verification needed to get $100 off through the Education Store. I also went with that midnight blue colorway, and yes, to all the people that are still wondering if it is a fingerprint magnet, you can see that fingerprints are all over this thing whether you like it or not, but a quick clean with a microfiber cloth and some water will wipe away all of those fingerprints if that's something that you're really looking into, or a reason why you wouldn't want to get the M2 MacBook Air. But overall, the machine is awesome. I'm not going to review the machine here itself. This is more of a desk setup video. If you guys want to watch some of those reviews, I'll link them down below. But if you're somebody looking for a productivity machine that can kind of get everything done to a certain extent and cover 99% of tasks that need to get done, the M2 MacBook Air is more than enough, right? It's a Slack machine, email machine, Netflix machine. You can do a little bit of light video editing, some photo editing. It's a battery champ. The display is great. Yes, it's not a mini LED display, but it's still very bright. It still gets plenty bright in outdoor sunlight. And that 13.6 upgrade to the panel in terms of size does make a little bit of a difference coming from 13.3. And then also, if you're worried about the notch goes away pretty much immediately after you start using it for about a day or so. So if you guys are looking for a machine that can pretty much do everything that you would want it to an extent, and then the only reason I went with the 16 gigs of RAM upgrade is because I wanted just a little bit more future proofing with some of the applications that I use. And then connected to that MacBook Air, I have the newest addition to the desk setup, which is a new 32-inch BenQ monitor, and this is the PD3220U. I'm going to leave that link down in the description if you guys do want to check it out. But this is a great 4K display for anybody looking to really make sure you get the most out of your M2 MacBook Air, or any MacBook Air or MacBook Pro for that matter. I use a single cable solution for this setup, so it's a Thunderbolt 3 going directly into the M2 MacBook Air, and that is the only thing powering the M2 MacBook Air. This display is absolutely amazing. I love the size. 32 inches in my opinion is a perfect size. I had a 27-inch monitor before, but even then that one was a little bit small for all the different windows that I like to have open, but this thing is an absolute beast. So this BenQ monitor was made with Macs in mind. It has that P3 color gamut that Macs like to use, and it's built specifically for Mac. And what I really enjoy about this monitor is that yes, the color accuracy is exceptionally well. It's pretty much a one-to-one comparison to what you see on the Mac screen is what you're going to be able to see, especially from a color situation on the actual BenQ display itself. But it's also a USB-C hub if you really think about it, or even a Thunderbolt hub. It has every single I/O that you could ever imagine on the rear and on the side for easy access with this monitor. So in terms of I/O, you get your classic headphone jack, you get 3 USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports. You also get a USB 3.1 Gen 1 port, but for upstream, so it has that different USB-A connection if you guys do know what I'm talking about. You also get a micro USB in, and the reason there's a micro USB in is for the G2 puck, which is basically an extension of the settings to be able to control it much easier. You get 2 full HDMI ports, you get a display port, you get a Thunderbolt 3 port, which is for all the data transfer in that single cable solution that I really do enjoy. There's another Thunderbolt 3 port that can be used for daisy chaining. Now for the M2 MacBook Air, unfortunately with the M1 and the M2 chip, it only supports one external display at a time, unless you do something like Display Link, but this is not Display Link ready. But then if you do have a MacBook Pro, then you can daisy link as many of these as you will see fit. And then you also have one final USB-C port on the side for data transfer if you do want to get easy access to one like that. It's an amazing monitor, great quality, very easy to set up, very quality as well. Like the hinge and the actual stand that it's on is very quality. I put it behind my Grovemade stand, which we'll touch on in a little bit, but it's got every port that you would need in the book. Great for a single cable solution. If you want somebody that wants to get as close to that color accuracy as, let's say, the Studio Display or the Pro Display XDR, you can get this one for a much more competitive price, which I believe is $800 to $900, depending on when you're viewing this, but I will link it down in the description below if you guys do want to check it out. But that is my new monitor by BenQ. I think it's freaking amazing. And then I briefly want to mention the G2 Puck because it does give you easy access to the settings. You don't have to reach behind to kind of mess around blindly with whatever settings you want to mess with. And the monitor does have a built-in speaker as well. It's not the loudest thing in the world. I usually prefer to use the speakers either on the MacBook Air or whatever headphones I have. But if you're somebody that needs at least something to come out of the speakers, you know that the BenQ monitor does at least have some sort of audio coming out of it. And you can see that right under there, I do have my Grove-made stand. And then on the stand itself, I do have my actual M2 Macbook Air in clamshell mode, and that's sitting on a Momax stand. And now this Momax stand, I absolutely love because for the price, I believe it's anywhere from $10 to $15. It is made out of plastic, so it's not like super high quality aluminum, but I've had this thing for a few months now, and what I love about it is that it actually just makes it very easy to use. It uses the own weight of the device that you're putting in there to actually close it up and secure it, and then when you lift it up, you don't have to take any knobs off, you don't have to loosen anything, you just lift up, and then the mechanism feels that it's being lifted up, so it opens up on its own. So it uses its own weight to secure itself down, and then also to remove it off of the actual stand itself. So I think it was just geniusly made. So for $15, you cannot beat it. And I've had like $60 to $100 stands before that are made out of pure metal and aluminum, and you have to screw them in and out. But I mean, it was just too much of a headache versus this. Just plop it off and on, and you're good to go. And then on the other side of the Grove-made stand, I actually have my M1 iPad Pro, the baseline model, and that's sitting on the Mag Float stand, which you guys have seen me talk about in the past. Probably my favorite magnet iPad stand that's out there right now. I do wish maybe it had some I/O or maybe it turned it into an actual hub itself, but if you just need an absolute stand that works with all your iPads for the most part, especially the 11-inch, 12.9-inch, and the iPad Air, this thing is a no-brainer because it also fits the Apple aesthetic. It makes it look like it's a Pro Display XDR or a Studio Display, which I absolutely love. And then it's all connected there via magnets, and they are coming out with a new one which has a height adjustable stand. This one is a stagnant stand or a permanent stand, but if you guys want to get the height adjustable one, I'll link them down both below. And now let's talk about what I have on the desk itself. So on the desk, or the desk itself, is by Autonomous. I've mentioned my desk a bunch of times. It is my tried and true desk. I've had it for years now at this point. Still no issues whatsoever. It's got some nicks and scratches just from a couple moves, but those are all my fault, not the desk's fault. But extremely sturdy, extremely reliable. You have the 4 memory buttons, so you have up to 4 different sit and stand height selections that you can actually have memorized and set into place. And then it can go as low as 29.5 inches and as high as I believe 47 inches. So definitely check it out if you guys are looking for a sit stand desk. That's extremely quality. And then on top of that, I do have my XL Orbit Key desk mat, which is my favorite desk mat. I recommend it to anybody that's looking for a desk mat because it's made out of this really nice vegan leather. It's extremely large, which I like to see. And what I like about this desk mat is that it does a little bit more than just being a desk mat, right? It has 2 kind of features that I do want to highlight. The first one is a little divot that runs across the north side or the top side of the actual desk mat itself. And what this is used for is, I use it for a couple things. I use it as my Apple Pencil holder, so it does have a magnet along that entire strip. Not only can it house the Apple Pencil because it has those little divots in there, so it's not going to go anywhere, but it also has magnets. So if you have an Apple Pencil, it's going to magnetize on there and it's really not going to go anywhere. And then it also has a little extra magnetic clasp on there that's actually for cable management. So if you want to have one single cable, which I use for my actual Air 96, which is my keyboard of choice, then it just allows you to have one cable to easily manage and kind of move along there whenever you see fit. So I think that was a great implementation of something easy to accomplish and something that not a lot of people actually take into account. And then secondly is that this desk mat is actually double layered. So if you lift up that vegan leather, you actually have some area there, which is a felt backing, to actually put, single, maybe double, maybe even 3 sheets of paper at once, or a brochure, or some things that maybe you need to see on a daily basis but are an eyesore, and maybe some documents that you want to slide under there, like some tax documents which are going on right now. But that is the Orbit Key desk mat, right? It's a desk mat that has a couple features. It's very high quality. It's felt on the bottom, so it doesn't leave any markings like a normal leather or vegan leather could leave, especially on a white oak desk. So having that little layer down there with a little slot for some documentation, and then also the features on top there with the divot, is a great desk mat. I've had this one for years now at this point. Definitely worth considering. And then on the desk mat itself, I actually have my triple combo of how I use it to input with the M2 Macbook Air. So I have my Satechi M1 mouse, which I will recommend as kind of like a cheap mouse alternative. It's about $30. I love the actual build quality. It's very light, very easy to use. Connects to one device, so if you need something that connects to multiple devices, then the Logitech Anywhere S3 could be a better choice, but that one does start at around $70, $80. The Satechi mouse for $30 is a no-brainer because it connects to anything that you need it to, very reliable and easy to use. And it comes in a bunch of different colorways, which I do like. And then I have the brand new Air 96. So this is the mechanical keyboard by Newfie. I've used their Air 60 before, and the Air 60 is more of a compact keyboard without the number pad. The Air 96 is a much larger keyboard, still relatively thin, especially compared to other mechanical keyboards, but I just love the look and feel. I love the pastel-y colors. I love the ability to actually interchange all the different keys that I would want to. The clickiness is there, the key travel is there, but it's not so much key travel that it's annoying and hard to type. Like I was using other mechanical keyboards, which made it feel almost tedious to type on because the key travel was just so much. This is a great in-between. So if you're somebody that enjoys the chiclet-style keyboards like myself, but want to get into the mechanical keyboard space, the Air 96 is a great product to actually start trying mechanical keyboards because it's kind of in between from a key travel perspective. Yes, there is a lot of key travel comparatively, but compared to some of the other mechanical keyboards, which is so much key travel, I would recommend this Air 96 or even the Air 60 as a way to get into the mechanical keyboard space. And this Air 96 is great. Like I mentioned, the pastel-y colors alone sold me on it, but it can connect up to 3 different devices and even connect to a 2.4 gigahertz connection. So technically connected to 4 different things if you do think about it that way. It can connect via USB-C or it also connects wirelessly, and it has both a Windows and Mac OS mode. So if you want to use it with Mac OS, you can do that. If you want to use it with Windows 11, you can also do that. So this is a very tried and true product. It works very well, extremely reliable, like I mentioned, because I use the Air 60 for months at a time, and now I'm going to use this one for a couple months just to see if I like it, especially compared to my Satechi X1, which is probably my favorite, third-party keyboard of all time, just because of the chiclet style and the familiarity with that one. But the Air 96 is a great mechanical keyboard, and like I said, it's a little bit longer, so it does bring that number pad on the right-hand side. And then lastly, for my third input, I do use Apple's Magic Trackpad in the white color just because I like to use it for gestures, and then whenever I use my iPad Pro as my computer as well and I plug it into the external monitor, having that Magic Trackpad as a gesture-based control system for the iPad Pro especially makes my life so much easier. So if you guys do want to have that triple input method of trackpad, mouse, and keyboard, I highly recommend it, even if you are Mac OS or iPad OS. And then some other tidbits on my desk. I do have a 3-in-1 charger by Momax, which has been one of my favorite chargers just because it's a very, very white color, so it kind of fits my aesthetic right now. Sometimes you don't really even notice it because it's so white, especially compared to the oak tabletop, but it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a 3-in-1 charger. It charges via MagSafe, charges your Apple Watch at the normal 5-watt speed, not the fast charge speed, and also you get another 5 watts of charge for, let's say, your AirPods Pro or your regular AirPods or another set of wireless charging headphones. And then lastly, what I do want to show off is that I do have that GroveMate stand, but in that GroveMate stand, there's actually a little drawer in there. And in that drawer, I have the new T7 Samsung SSD, which I use pretty much every single day, especially to offload finished videos like this one from my iPad and from my MacBook. So that is my SSD of choice, which I really do like using. And then also I have a bunch of other little things in there like pens and pencils and other one-time use products that I just keep in there for easy access, like a lightning cable or maybe another USB-C cable that would be needed. And then also underneath that GroveMate stand, I have the Power Cloud, which is just a fancy power strip essentially. So on top you have 3 full AC outlets, which I use a lot for testing of different products. And then also you have a full PD 60-watt charger for a USB-C port. You have another 18-watt USB-C port, and then you have a USB-A port, which also outputs up to 18 watts. So if you need kind of like a little hub right there that looks kind of interesting, fits your aesthetic, and kind of gets the job done from a power perspective, the iSwift by Power Cloud is one of my favorite products because overall it just looks good and does exactly what I need it to do. And it's just, like I said, a fancier power strip that looks good and get the job done. But that's pretty much everything on my desk, right? Everything on this desk setup for the most part is powered by my M2 Macbook Air. The iPad Pro is used as a supplement, as either another display, or I can use it with universal control, or I can just use the iPad as my main computer as well with this exact setup. But that is going to do for this video, everybody. If you did enjoy it, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below. And leave some comments down below of other products that I should take a look at for my desk setup. What are some other things that maybe you use on a daily basis that you would recommend whenever they're setting up their desk setup or setting up their new computer or whatever the case may be. I'm always curious to know what you guys are using on a day-to-day basis. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys want to watch some more macOS, iOS, or iPadOS content, click on one of these right here. But until next time, I'm Fernando, and I'm out of here, everybody. Peace.